do that. Thank you. All right, and thank you, Mr. Arnold. Dr. Keith, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmelita Keith. I am a senior instructional designer with Booz Allen Hamilton. It is a consulting firm that is based out of McLean, Virginia. And I've been with Booz Allen for 16 years this year. So a really, really long time. I started out doing instructional design with Booz Allen and came to Virginia Tech in 2000, I think maybe 13 or 14 maybe, for the master's program. And then went into the PhD program after that. And I just graduated in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic. I had to finish my dissertation. So I just finished my PhD last year. And with Booz Allen, pretty much what we do, like I said, it's a consulting firm. And so most of my clients over the 15-year time that I've been there have been government clients. I've had a few commercial clients that we develop for, but mostly government agencies that I've worked for.
Thank you. Dr. Mosley?
I don't know why I'm here. I was invited by Dr. Lockey. I guess she made a mistake.
No, absolutely not.
I graduated from Virginia Tech Instructional Design Technology PhD program in 2013. Since then, I've worked for a number of companies. I first started out with Siemens Healthcare as a senior instructional designer, then moved over to Philips Healthcare, which was their competitor. And it was when I started to convert more into the system side. So I do instructional design, but more the instructional technology that enables the ability for instructional design modules to go into the system. Since then, moved to Duke Energy, which I have been there for 5 years. I'm the senior learning technology and development manager. A bit of the difference between instructional design from the developing module side and the system side is, we look at the things like integrations with WebEx. I think at Virginia Tech, I believe I don't know if you're still using Scholar. That was what we were using there at the time. Is that still in play?
We use Canvas now.
Okay, so essentially I own the system equivalent to Canvas for the corporate side, which is Cornerstone on Demand. And so a lot of the integrations between WebEx, your Zooms, we use integrations between Storyline, also Articulate and Rise, and making sure the system is configured to be able to play those modules. So I've moved from instructional design to the instructional system design, but a lot of the principles remain consistent.
Awesome, thank you. And Ms. Richards?
Hi guys, sorry. Okay, I'm not on mute, thank you. Hope everybody's doing great today. It's so good to see some of your faces that I haven't seen in a long time, and nice to meet the people I haven't met yet. I am a senior project manager for learning and development at Freddie Mac. I do still do a lot of instructional design, but also a lot of project management. We offer some instructor-led training, but it's now blended learning. So we will do, maybe we'd have a whole program that would have 2 instructor-led components and some recorded programming that they could access through the learning management system. Do a lot of onboarding training and just general employee education. So.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, I guess the first question that I have for everyone is, how did you find an industry that was right for you? It sounds like everybody's sort of maybe doing different things. I'm just sort of curious to hear about that a little bit. So we can go in the same order if that's okay. Starting with Mr. Arnold.
Awesome. I think that's a great question. And actually, when I thought about it, I wanted to pivot it a little bit and take it away from the focus on industry versus company, because I really think that the company, specifically the team that you work with, like your managers, your teammates, and how they enable you to grow, that type of thing, plays an important role in your career development. And I think that our idea of what is right for us, it changes as we evolve and as our experience and as we gain new experiences and skills, we may find that, the role that we in either is enabling us to do more, or it's holding us back from doing what we want to do. And so I think regardless of the industry, that there's a lot of similarities in, in working with the team, working with a company. And so I definitely think the company and whether or not you have an opportunity to grow is just as important as the industry.
Some really good insight. Thanks.
I would say that I failed to mention when I introduced myself, I started out in the classroom. I was a high school teacher for 6 years before transitioning into industry. And my transition happened as I had 2 small kids, and at the time the pay was not significant enough for me to go back to work in the classroom. So I was looking for something else that could kind of justify my childcare fees. Anyway, that's pretty much, how I made my shift into industry. But also kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Arnold said, I think I started out doing adult training and in instructional design, and I do feel like the company you're working with, the team you're on, it's important, but finding the right fit is critical, and it does, it does have a lot to do with your company's values, the core values of your company, how they support work-life balance, how they how flexible are they, and what your commitment to work is. I mean, do you have work-life balance? Are you raising a family? Are you a single person who's willing to throw 12 hours into your work? So I think you kind of have to figure out what it is that you want from the position or from the company or from your next career move, and what you're willing to put in for that. And I think some of that comes through when you interview on both sides. I think it comes through from the company side. I think it comes through from the, your side as the interviewee, because some companies really do expect you to be available 24/7. And some companies understand you're a mom or you're a dad or you have small children or whatever the case may be. And so you kind of have to figure out that balance as well.
Thanks, Dr. Keith. Dr. Mosley?
Could you ask the question again? I just want to make
sure. Yes. So the question is, how did you find an industry that was the right fit for you? Or how did you know that the industry you're in was a good fit?
At the time, I moved into instructional design. I was selling insurance and, going and cold calling people and convincing them to buy life insurance was not really my forte. I did pretty well at it. I can talk a little bit, but, wasn't where I felt like my expertise lied. So I really wanted to get into classroom teaching. And then I looked at the pay, and I didn't see that as part of my life's trajectory either. So, then we started in 2007, I did do a master's in instructional design. We were looking at, I did my personal trend analysis of what I thought education would look like moving forward. And anytime that it's like any other trend, if you look at stock markets and things, if you can get in as an early adopter into the field and starting to look at digital ways of teaching. And I remember one of Dr. Potter's classes talking about this is one of the biggest revolutions since pen and paper was moving into the digital space as it relates to education. And so that was the reason why I selected instructional design. And then we started to talk about the company side of it, even when we looked at corporate environment, because there was also a decision after or during and after graduation of how you want to move your career moving forward. There's K through 12, there's higher ed, and then there's corporate, and then a couple of other markets that I'm not familiar with. But, corporate was also one that was still very, very classroom based as it related to training and development. And they, a lot of money was spent in flying employees into a classroom for them to learn how to turn a widget or whatnot. And when you look at cost savings, one of the quickest ways is in travel expenses. So, I focused in on that. And so that led me to then looking at the technology that enabled that to be something that the corporations could do. So the original driver was money. And then it started to become like, how do you use your creative thoughts and all the principles that are taught in the program that you guys are in to translate that into creating your own space. So in my career, I have actually never, every company that I've worked for, I've built a department based off of instructional design. So when I was at Siemens Healthcare, they really didn't have an instructional design department. They hired me as an intern. Dr. Lackey and Dr. Potter probably remember this. They hired me as an intern to revamp like 3 training modules. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. That's no problem. But let me write this business pitch to establish a department. And so, a lot of in Virginia Tech's principle or slogan back then was invent the future. I think it's changed. Hasn't it changed since then? I don't know why they changed it. It was amazing. So it was really the mindset of taking what you learn and also becoming a creative in order to make your own path. And so I don't know if I answered your question. I'm just talking. And that's
I mean, we're here to listen to you, and everything you're saying is helpful. So thank you. Yeah.
I think it's in short and skinny is, it's an opportunity to be creative and also develop your own business path.
Thanks. Ms. Richards?
Well, I don't want to go after Brian anymore, but that was awesome. Thank you. And I would like to second what Dr. Keith said about, work-life balance and finding a company that really values you as a person and as a contributor and helps you be able to bring your specialized skill set and then also be able to still have a life outside of that. Just walking through my career, I've definitely, left a few places because I didn't have the work-life balance I was looking for, being emailed on the weekend. And, it's fine when you're preparing for an event, but it shouldn't be the norm. So how did I get into this industry? Well, when I was in high school, I worked at my mom's animal hospital and I was her front desk person most of the time. And I went to a continuing education conference with her, fell in love with the whole, world of conference and events, and just loved watching people get information about what they do every day and how to be a better whatever it is that they are, whether it be a veterinarian or front desk employee or vet technician, that kind of thing. And I even found in high school that I was listening to people learning about running an animal hospital, and I felt like I had things I could already add value to and say, well, have you guys ever considered doing this instead, and that kind of thing. So I went to Virginia Tech for instructional technology in 1988, graduated in 99, learned instructional technology. And the more I got into instructional design and got into, the office and working, and mostly what I started to focus on was just about processes and how people could do things more efficiently. And that seems to be what I kind of bring to an organization, is just looking at that, which is kind of how I'm more a project manager than instructional designer now. But instructional design is always at the core of what I'm doing. So, but when I first met Barbara, I was working at CMR in Emmanuel. We hired you while I was there, and that was awesome. And I do love the healthcare industry and reading about medicine and reading journals about medicine, and all of that is something I'm very passionate about. But as my career has moved on, I'm even more, or I was just as passionate about helping people feel comfortable where they're working, enjoy their role, be fulfilled, and be able to grow in their role. So you could really kind of do that in any industry. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess this next question, I'll open it up for anyone to answer in any order. And also just to all the attendees here, feel free to pop in with questions, anything like that. Yeah. So the question I have is sort of what are the most important skills you would say that are necessary for new instructional designers? And what might be some things that help new designers stand out amongst a sea of candidates?
I'll go first, I guess. So the most important skills, I'll tell you, I was really surprised by the amount of writing that was involved. You know, I saw myself as an instructional designer. I designed instruction, you know, and then there was all this writing. Like, here's a bulleted list, make a 3-hour course out of this, you know. And so it's there's a lot of writing that is involved in instructional design. And the thing is that there's different types of writing. There's technical writing, which is kind of under the umbrella, but sometimes companies don't know the difference between instructional design and technical writing. They just want you to explain how this process works as short and concise as possible. So there's technical writing, and then there's copywriting, which is more persuasive, right? And then there's writing assessments, which is a whole nother can of worms. And so it's definitely a great benefit to evolve and expand as much different types of writing as possible, because as instructional designers, we have to find the right voice for whatever we're doing, right? The style, the tone, the attitude, the personality with which we write, it changes, and it changes from industries too. So your more technical industries could be more, you know, or you like more technical writing, basically, you know, when you get into some of the more industrial type industries, whereas more marketing or educational, consumer related industries would be more conversational and persuasive. So I think it's important that you really develop and explore the different types of writing that's involved. And also, if you haven't done so yet, try to do some different examples in your portfolio, right? So just trying to expand that. And just to make a further point about the writing piece of it, so I work at Power School, and we have well over 2,000 employees. Within my team, which is the customer education team, we write customer education focused training and documentation, trainer-led content as well. I'm the only one on my team with an instructional design degree. Everyone else were either accidental instructional designers that kind of fell into the role. Maybe they were on the support team and they had enough product knowledge and they wanted to move up to something else. And so I think there's something to make a note of, is that you may go into a role and there are people that have your title and you're like, excuse me, like, how are you an instructional designer? Like, did you have Dr. Lockie or Dr. Potter? Like, I mean, what do you even know about it? And it's really, I think as popular as instructional design is now, because I feel like in the early 2000s, someone's like, you do what? Like, what is that? And now it's more of a like, I want to be an instructional designer, this type of thing. And so, and so the thing is that I still feel like companies, they like the name and they kind of understand what it is, but it's still a lot of writing, and a lot of the people on my team, although not classically trained in instructional design or have a formal degree in it, at the end of the day, we're writing, and we're all trying to make each other better. So I always try to include things that I like from an instructional design background to help improve them, and we try to help each other out. But writing is a big piece of it.
Thanks. As a former English major, that's reassuring to know.
I was an undergrad English major as well, so that is a very great benefit for you. That's definitely an excellent point. I think writing is a huge part of it. I do also feel like something that stands out is your familiarity with different software tools, because different companies obviously have different tools that they use, but and obviously you can't be an expert in everything. But just having some background, some knowledge of different options, different tools that you can offer. And depending on what the company you currently uses, you could possibly offer some better suggestions for whatever their goals are, things like that. Being open and flexible, or kind of demonstrating that you are flexible, again, just having some background knowledge, like, okay, I may have never used this particular tool, but I know it exists. and I know some of its capabilities. I mean, a lot of the tools, if you have a degree in instructional design, a lot of the tools you can do a LinkedIn training on, or you can get into a certification class that could be 2 days, honestly. So it's not like you need a whole new degree to learn Storyline, or you need a whole new degree to learn Captivate. But again, if you go into an interview or you're looking for a position and they ask you, do you have experience using Captivate? And you're like, what's that? I mean, that's not a good sign. Like you might, I don't have any experience with Captivate, but I'm familiar with it. And I, know some of, how it's used. And I'd be interested in learning more about Captivate. I mean, like I said, it's not something that you need a whole degree in, but having familiarity with some of the different tools that are used out there would be beneficial.
Great, thanks, Dr. Keith. I have a follow-up question to that. How do you show to employers that you're willing to learn and that you have the potential to learn this tool even if you don't know it right away?
Being involved, and I think the professors at Virginia Tech did a great job of pulling us into AECT and organizations where we demonstrate that we are constantly learning new skills, constantly interested in how the industry is changing. I feel like just having involvement in those kind of things speak volumes, because it says that you're keeping up with the trends. If you say you have a subscription to a certain, magazine, or, you attend different conferences, then it says that I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner, and constantly, building my instructional design skills, learning, about new tools, learning about innovative ideas for, delivering training. But, your involvement speaks volumes about you being a learner.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, question one more time. Just I hear it and I go in a million different directions when I hear the responses, and those were amazing responses, by the way. I completely agree.
Yeah, so the question is, what do you think are the most important skills for a new designer to have, and how can they sort of differentiate themselves in a sea of candidates?
Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit different of a spin on it. I think that understanding how objectives become your cornerstone for your development, right? And so, like, a lot of times I have people come and ask for my team to develop out content. And so instructional design, I've noticed over the past couple of years, has changed because you have these companies that are developing content. Like, let's take sexual harassment training. I don't know if it makes sense for me to have an instructional designer build that from scratch, because there's a lot of content curation houses that have that, but it might not meet the need for the company. So you have to then kind of fill in the gaps and maybe, tweak the content a little bit. But for an instructional designer, it's really important to understand what the objective that your client is asking for, and being able to clearly understand, clearly communicate that information back. And then in your wheelhouse is your development, the ability to use Captivate, the ability to use Storyline or any proprietary software. But you also need to have in your back pocket that there are content curation houses that you can pull content and kind of piece it together to meet the need of the organization. But so for that to happen, you first have to really be able to ask the right questions, understand the objective of the organization from your pedagogical toolkit, understand what type of pedagogy are you going to apply to this, and then what type of information is available to you, because then you can do it much faster than having to do it from scratch each time. And being able to crank information out really quickly that is pedagogically sound is really, really important. And that's from the corporate side of the house. So I only work in the industry for which I work, but I think that's important to be able to really hone in on asking the questions to get the objectives, and then reaching into your own personal toolkit to meet it.
Thanks. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Ms. Richards.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was really great. Thank you. For me, some of it is being able to identify your strengths, whether they be technology versus writing. And as some people have discussed, even if you can just have a knowledge of Captivate or learning management systems and understanding what their capabilities are, even if you are not fluent in all of them, knowing what their capabilities are so that when you're writing a storyboard, you can add in there what exactly you would like them to do for you in the course with the tool that they're building it in. And I think that's a really important thing to be able to do so that you're not coming in wanting flying unicorns and they're saying, Captivate can't build flying unicorns. And then you have to go back to square one and you've wasted company time to do something that you shouldn't have been asking for in the first place. Another thing that is important to remember is your budget. So if you have, budgeted for a course that's $5,000 to build with a vendor and you want to have 4 videos in it, that might not be within the scope of that budget. So you have to remember that. And you also don't want to be, a project manager that's come back and gone over budget. And so those are things to keep in mind as well. Another thing I think that's important to stand out is if there is a, an interview section where you take a test in instructional design. I think it's very important to be able to succinctly capture a thought or a process that can make it very sticky for the learner so they will remember it when they walk away. And then once you get onto the team, being able to work closely with a subject matter expert to comb through the information that they provide to you and find the areas that stick out in your mind that won't make sense or flow logically for the end user. It might make sense to somebody that considers themselves an expert in it, but remember to put yourself in the seat of the learner and make sure that the information you're presenting works for them. So I guess basically, understand your audience and make sure the information is being presented in that voice.
Great, thanks. I have a follow-up question to that. I guess as students, it's a little bit hard to get some of the project management skills that are involved, especially when it comes to budgeting and the finance aspect of that. Do you have any tips for building those skills?
That's a great question. There are definitely some pretty, not time-intensive certificate programs for project management. Like you don't have to go out and get the full-fledged PMP certification. There's other lesser programs that will give you some great skills. And then also, find a mentor within your organization that has some project management skill sets that you're looking for. And then I would even just go as simple as to sit down with your manager and talk to them about what budgeting processes they use and how they, determine what the budget is and how they, what strategies they use to stay on track with that. You can even put, reminders on your calendar or in your project plan to check in on the budget to see that you're hitting the target. And also, just be sure you always know what the budget is before you start a project.
Can I piggyback on that? If you have group work, I think one project management exercise that may be good is at the beginning of the project, lay out what a week is going to look like and set some timelines and see if people make it. And if they don't, it costs money, and because it will give you an idea of how to buffer your project management. I know having projects back in the day, it feels like it back in the day, but it wasn't that long ago. When I would have group projects, a lot of times we would have a plan to meet on a Tuesday with deliverables on a Wednesday. And then we were all working in the GLC on Thursday to get done what was due on Tuesday. And so then if you can just kind of start understanding how people work and how things come up as a project manager, you'll start to understand you might need to add a little bit of buffer. It isn't going to give you the budget side, but it'll give you time. And in the world of business, hours equal pay because you get paid for the hours that you work.
Excellent thoughts. Thanks. Yes.
And I always believed in the practice of don't overpromise and underdeliver. So I mean, that buffer time is really important. I mean, it might sound good to say, oh, I can have that for you next week, but you don't want to disappoint. So if you look at an assignment or you look at a task and you're like, I really need 2 weeks to do this. Okay, great. If you can deliver it next week, everybody's happy about it. But if you tell them you're going to have it next week and next week comes and it was just impossible to do in a week or a month or whatever the case may be, you want to have that extra time to make sure you're delivering something that's of good quality.
I think I want to add on to that too as well. Keep in mind that even like your role now, Jenny, I believe you said you're the treasurer. Is that right? You know, that
Yes,
counts
that's
too,
correct.
right? It's like if anything you're doing, because right now, while you're a student, you may be thinking, I don't have any type of experience for, you know, project management, budgeting, but you do. Like we have personal things that we're involved with. We have personal groups and organizations outside of professional, the professional world where we budget, we manage people, we interact with people. And so any opportunities that you have to take on a project, maybe you're helping plan a 5K or something, or, you know, something random like that, you can still practice those skills and they still count, you know, they count for something. You know, you have experience in different parts of your life with managing large projects and things like that. So if the opportunities are out there, you could maybe leverage that into something you could add as an experience point on your resume.
So Jenny, if I could add one more thing too, to tag on to what somebody said earlier, I just wanted to say, sorry, it was Brian Mosley that said it, talking about teamwork. You know, that's going to be something that's vital to success in, you know, any job. And one of the strategies that I use is, like Brian was saying, you know, if you have a project plan for, you know, what the week is going to look like, and, you know, you have deliverables due on a Friday, you know, I would put a calendar reminder on my Wednesday and say, check in with the team and see where everybody is. And, you know, if you're really good friends with the person, you could add them to that calendar invite. And if you're not really good friends with them, you don't have to add them to it, and you can just reach out to them on your own and see how they're doing with it. You know, you have to just learn the folks that you're working with and decide if your touch is going to be gentle, or, you know, how they best respond to being asked where they are with things. Also, another great tool for sharing for projects is, you know, documents that you're sharing. Learn how to, maybe you already know how to, but, you know, getting good at sharing files and letting folks know when you've made your changes, or whether you're ready for them to make their changes. All these things that you probably already know how to do, just, you know, roll them into your work life and execute on them.
Another thing too, I think is important, is knowing your team, knowing the people that you work with, because when you know your team, you know, if, you know, when you're up against deadlines or deliverables, you know, if this person typically needs a review and some feedback and some time to update, you have to build that into your schedule. And you know, if this person always will submit late, that you need to account for that. You got to tell them it's due before it's due, because they always submit late. So you got to know your team. And they might always submit great work late, but it's always late. So you kind of got to build that in too. So, you know, it's really, really important to know who you're working with, know your team, and that'll kind of help you build your schedule out as well.
Great advice, thanks. I just want to sort of check in with the rest of the participants here, see if anybody has any questions, comments so far.
I have an ask. I know the panelists introduced ourselves, but I don't think everyone else did. So I don't really know who I'm talking to.
Sure. I guess we can kind of go around quickly and do that. Yeah, so Bryce, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, I'm Bryce. I am a first-year doctoral student in the IUT program here at Tech, and just moved down to the area, Christiansburg, and you know, so far everything's going great and enjoying all the studies. I really enjoy getting some first-hand knowledge on what the life in industry is. Leaning towards a path right down the middle between industry and academia. So it's great to learn all about it. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryce. Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Stidham. I'm a, oh my God, what year is this? This is my third year here, again, a PhD candidate. I've got an MBA also. I had a long career in business, and after 9/11, which now shows my age, moved into education. Then went back into marketing and wandered somehow over into adjuncting as a business professor. And now I'm here and loving the living daylights out of it.
Dr. Johnson?
Hi, it's great to see you all. I'm Alicia Johnson. I'm a visiting assistant professor here in the IDT department. And it's my biggest blessing to work with these people. It's great to see you.
Rebecca?
Hi, everyone. So I'm kind of half here. I just had my COVID shot, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be feeling up to this, but hello. I am a PhD candidate in the IDT program. I'm almost done as the ITSA president, in which I'm going to hand it over to Bryce, who never mentioned that he was going to be next year's president. So we're super excited about that. We're chill. Yeah, and I was really looking forward to this. I'm excited to see everybody and meet some people that have been previously in the program. So.
Yep. Helen?
Hi, my name is Helen. I'm a second year PhD student in IDT program, and I'm also the social media officer for ITSA. Thank you.
Jordan?
Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm a first year PhD student in developmental science while also pursuing a simultaneous second master's degree in data analysis and applied statistics. I'm really interested in looking at some alternate career routes outside of academia because I feel like I'm not really able to use my leadership skills as much as I would like to. And so I love learning about everything that everyone had to say today. I feel like this is a really interesting career path.
Awesome, thanks. And then Tawny, you put your introduction in the chat. You're a fourth year PhD student in engineering education. So yeah, we're really happy to have you. Yeah. So yeah, does anybody have any questions, comments about anything they've heard for the panelists or?
I have a little ask, if you will, of the panelist. Something that I've kind of struggled with, looking forward, especially going into industry and, in whichever way this path takes us, is the idea of constructing a portfolio. There, especially given the nature of the field, that portfolios, the work that we do doesn't necessarily lend itself easily to a single, website kind of thing. And so I was just wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about the kind of things that you've put into your portfolio and how you kind of orchestrated that. And then, if possible, if you have a link or something that you'd like to share as an example, I think we'd certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, I would love to see examples of your portfolios too. That would be awesome.
That's a great question, Bryce. I've actually, the idea and importance of a portfolio, unfortunately, doesn't go away no matter how long you're working in the field. I'm actually working in a small group of about 5 to 6 professionals with varying levels of experience. And we actually have a portfolio group. It's very informal. It was started off of Facebook. There's a ton of instructional design Facebook groups, by the way, too, that you should check out. But there are lots of webinars, YouTube videos, articles about the idea of a portfolio. And I think the main gist of what makes a portfolio stand out above others is that you're not just showing, look what I did, an articulate storyline, or look at this job aid I made. Which the thing that really makes you stand out is talking about your specific role in the portfolio piece, the tools you used, the challenges that you had, the thought process as it relates to this portfolio piece, and then any metrics or outcomes from the piece. So it's more of a 360 type view. Instead of just saying, hey, look at this course I made, you can say, this course was for this particular audience. Some of the challenges were X, Y, and Z. My role in the course, I had to brainstorm all the different pieces. I had to work with SMEs who were kind of challenging. So basically it's almost like you're giving people a tour of your thought process for a particular piece in your portfolio. And it can be understated. I think one of the questions that may be asked is, what helps you stand out in a sea of candidates or of potential job candidates? And one is a resume that's tailored to the job, not just a generic resume that you send out to everyone, but a resume that matches the needs of that specific role, a cover letter that's specific to the job you're applying for, and then a portfolio, because a portfolio is a way for you to introduce yourself without even being there. So sometimes people are going through these candidates, and maybe you're in the top list, maybe you're the 2 to 3 profile. I mean, or you're on top of the pile, maybe 2 or 3 candidates, and on your resume you say, check out my portfolio. Some people don't, especially instructional designers, don't really either don't have a portfolio they want to represent, or maybe it's kind of halfway finished. But so having a portfolio and then having the thought process behind the different pieces you worked on, the tools you use, definitely makes it stand out. And so you can look, there's a lot of different portfolios out there, but one of the main things I see that separates the mediocre from the really good portfolios is breaking down your involvement in the piece you're showing, how you applied ADDIE, or some of the challenges you work with, some of the tools you work with, because you don't really get that without explaining it. So
I want to just piggyback on that, because everything you said was right on point. And one of the things that we do with the company where I am, everything kind of boils down to impact. And I think it's easy to kind of overlook the impact you had or you have on something when you're in the project, or sometimes you just don't even realize the impact you have. But I feel like for your portfolio to stand out, as you talk about what you did, your role in a project, as you show your work, don't be afraid to really play up and express the impact that your project had. You developed this training for, this client or for this project, and this training provided, whatever kind of impact it was. It could be a training you did for a group of individuals that now they know how to better, I can't even think of for me right now, a project I might be on my impact Americans and how they register for healthcare. Just kind of throwing something out as an example. But definitely highlight the impact. Everything that we do when we, for the company where I am, everything we do is measured by the impact it had for the client. So, don't forget to add that piece. Don't just talk about your role in the project. Talk about how your role impacted the client or, the customer. Make sure you play that out really, really well.
Okay, Bryce, I'm going to put you on the spot. So you've had a couple of projects this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you were to pitch to me that you're an instructional designer, which project, you don't have to go into detail, but which project would you select?
Probably one I'm working on right now, dealing with branching scenarios. And at the moment, they're being applied to teaching or sampling methods. But the idea behind the development and research that we're pulling together is to make it more applicable to a wider audience, so that instructors can take what we're putting together based on research and theory from different areas and deploy it fairly easy for their own purposes across disciplines.
Okay, how would it be applied?
That we're putting in place, we're taking freely available tools and making some slight modifications to make them more accessible and easier to use on the kind of development side, so that instructors can more or less drop in their own content more easily than having to go through all the developmental, procedures that we're currently going through.
So you have a portfolio, so what you need to do is take exactly what you just said and make that represent itself on your resume. And I don't know how you do that, but to me, what you just said is important and it would catch my attention. So if you could capture that and get it where it's being delivered by the more intelligent other, which a resume or it be a portfolio online, that becomes important, because most people can't talk about what you just talked about.
And you included the impact.
Yeah.
You included your impact there, yeah.
Only after, some sound advice. Thank you.
So, I mean, the point in that exercise is that you're getting it. You have great professors there that are teaching you how to explain what it is that you're doing. Just trust the process and make sure that you apply the things that they're telling you.
Thank you.
I have a question. If
Oh,
I don't
please.
want to cut anybody off of that. And I guess this might maybe start with Brian, if you don't mind, because you had mentioned the money, and I mean, let's be honest, we all have to eat. So, and I'm making plans based on, I'm situated within a family, work-life balance. I think Dr. Keith and Ms. Richards talked about that as well. I think you all did actually, Dr. Arnold as well. So this idea of I'm looking for balance between work-life balance, but for me, it's also about the money, I'll be completely honest. And I've worked in a call center in insurance, so, and it paid minimum wage. And then I've looked at education, and I mean, very valuable experience, but they don't pay us what we're worth. So it's, I don't know what I think there's a very broad spectrum of salaries and options within industry. Like, how do you, what's that entry, I guess straight out, what's that entry level salary where you kind of, it's your worth based on having a master's or a PhD, I guess?
I don't know if I can answer that because so many ways.
I don't expect you. Yeah.
Yeah. But an exercise that I did, let me tell you about the process, is you look at not only the job at entry level, but then you also look at what the progression could be. And sometimes it's out there and sometimes it's not. For example, there's an idea of a chief education officer at a lot of companies now. Now, you rewind 10 years ago, that may not have been the case. It may have, the chief education officer was probably the chief HR officer that just was responsible for education. So entry-level salaries, it depends on how you want to do it. There's consulting, which there's consulting companies like Dr. Keith is in, and we've worked, even my company has worked with them. So they have a very different structure. If you work for a company, it's a very large company with a large instructional design department. I could play in a couple of ways. That means that you're competing against 15 other people for the manager role, or you could work at a small mom and pop, or you could do it for yourself. So I think as you start to look for the job that you want, evaluate there, and you can have my information, and I'm really happy to have an offline conversation about that and talk about my experience. And mine is only from corporate side. I have never worked for a consulting company, and I have done very little work in higher ed other than adjunct professing. So I don't really know. But if there's something that you have, what I can do is point you, if you have something that you want to do, whether work from home becomes important or being in an office becomes important, being in front of a classroom becomes important, then I have a network of people that I can point you towards. But at first, it becomes what is going to make you happy in working, because money isn't going to make you happy. You can have a great job and make a lot of money, but if you're an extrovert and you're at home every day and you never see anybody, it's going to kill you. I don't care if they pay you $500,000. It's still not going to be a happy place.
Thank you. That's really good to hear.
And I want to add one more thing. I'm sorry, were you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm an extrovert and I'm at home working in COVID and I'm miserable. So I'm happy to see you guys today.
I was going to add to that too. Obviously salaries are, range a great deal. But also when you are looking at salaries, make sure you consider the full picture, because I've had a lot of friends reach out to me because my company is based in McLean, Virginia. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say that they're looking at a position in DC or looking at a position in Arlington, and the salary is like amazing. And I always chuckle and I say, yeah, but you're going to spend a lot of that just to live there. Like, you're coming from, Georgia, and you're moving to DC, and they want to pay you $170,000, but they didn't tell you that to rent a 1,200 square foot condo, it's going to cost you $3,000 a month. They didn't tell you that, did they? And so you have to consider the whole picture before you just look at that big salary that a company is offering you, because sometimes it's a reason why they're offering such a big salary, because again, you got to consider the cost of living and things like that. So sometimes the salary is not just the end all. And again, that work-life balance, all of those things really are a huge factor. Sometimes some companies pay you a lot of money, but sometimes the trade-off for that is they do expect you to respond at 9 p.m. when they send you that email, because they pay for you. I mean, so it kind of goes back to the company's core values and what they, expect from you sometimes for those big salaries.
I'm going to wave my hand, even though I'm just a student in this moment. Having done the 100-hour weeks, don't let them do that to you. It happens, it creeps up on you, but 60 hours a week is not unusual. And it is kind of quietly expected.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and the reason I'm asking this is I'm not money driven. I mean, again, there's a fine balance, because I'm more looking for the work-life balance, because I'm planning on having a kid eventually. And for some reason, my brain, being a student for 30 years, has not been able to wrap around having a kid and working full-time yet. So I'm trying to find out, how do you kind of push yourself into that, negotiate salary, work-life balance, and I see Miss Richards. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Rebecca, I was just going to say a couple things. So first of all, there are a lot of people out there that will pay you nothing for being well educated. So filter that out right away. There was a job in our county to go into the school district and test kids. They were going to pay $20 an hour. I mean, yeah, you're only working the hours that the kids are in school, but you're worth more than $20 an hour. So just put it on your list, but note, clearly I'm not ever going to respond to this again, and ask the big questions up front. And the other thing is too, as a female in this world, you have to tell them what you are willing to do. If you're about to start a family, you're going to say, I'm not going to be available at X, Y, and Z time. And if they shy away from that in the interview process, then that's not the right fit for you. And if I were you, I would just put it out there to start with. And if that's what has worked for me, and you would be surprised. I have people that have hired me after I've said some outlandish things in the interview process. And I'm like, are you friends with my relatives? Why are you, offering me this package when I put out some crazy parameters? So you just have to be brutally honest. I mean, obviously you need to sell yourself and talk about your strengths and what you're bringing to the position, and just say, if you can understand that when I'm working for you, I'm 100% focused and I'm going to get my work done, and it's going to be 110%. But when I need to be with my family, I'd like to have that time.
And going back to piggyback what Sharon said, I mean, I feel like you have to, I think typically when you start a job, you have to prove yourself. I mean, you do have to prove yourself, but at the same time, you have to draw your boundaries early, because what you start is what's expected. So when you get that email at 9 p.m., if you respond, then they expect you to respond at 9 p.m. But if you get the email at 9 p.m., you could be awake, you could be sitting on your sofa watching television, but you have to tell yourself, I'll respond in the morning when it's my work time. And so you kind of set the expectation, that's what you're going to do. I'm on a project right now. They email all night. We were in a meeting the other day, and the project manager mentioned talking to somebody Friday night. And I was like, I don't ever want to talk to you on a Friday night, ever, nothing. And we kind of joking and on my team, because my line on my team is, we don't do brain surgery here. Nobody's going to die. I don't want to miss a deadline, but if we miss a deadline, it's a training deadline. nobody's gonna die. So do you need to call me on Saturday night? Probably not. But again, you set the expectation, and what you start, you do need to keep up.
I'll give you one general principle. If you don't have to be in a location and you can move and you stay at a company, learn as much as you can for 2 years, and you bounce to the next company and do that about 4 times, you'll make all the money you want to make. But you have to be flexible. But before wife, kids, and all that, Dr. Lockie will tell you I was everywhere. But then when you settle down, you can settle down at where you want. But to Dr. Keith's point, what you make in Alexandria versus San Francisco versus all of those places, and then you decide to settle down in a very inexpensive city like Charlotte, it works out. So if you don't have to be anywhere coming directly out of Virginia Tech, and you're not grounded by any place, then move. If you can. If you can't, then there's another path. But if you can move. That's my advice. Don't end up in Oklahoma unhappy and then blame it on me. But that's the one strategy that you can do.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We're at time, unfortunately, but this has been so great to hear all of your perspectives. So big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. Do we have any announcements? I'm trying to think before we go. We have the end of semester party coming up on May 7th. So that's next Friday. So keep an eye out for that. And everyone take care and stay safe. And
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
And I put my email in there, and
thank you.
Please add me to LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I will do my best to help out if I can.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carmelita, Mary, Emmanuel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good to see you all. Thanks for coming.
Good to see everybody.
Good to see you guys.